Yes.
All right, hello everybody. In case you don't know who I am, I am Jacqueline Carlson. I'm an architect, and we're starting a series of workshops on how to make a good portfolio. Today we'll be focusing on how to take pictures of your drawings and your models. Come on in, but you know everything.
I'm just curious and question.
Well, if you have any tips, you can tell me. And then in future workshops, we'll be talking about Photoshop, right, and how we can make things look better, what kind of verbiage you need to put in your portfolios. And this is geared towards two types of people, for those that want to get jobs, obviously, and then ones that are transferring to the university, because you need to, what you do here needs to be recorded electronically. You can't just take all, your big piles of work up to the school and say, here, this is what I did. Because usually it's going to get ruined in the trunk of your car. So you want to record it, and you want to take pictures of it as soon after you finish it as possible, before there's a chance that they get stamped. We are recording these, and I guess they'll be put on our website once they're uploaded, and so you can refer back to them. But like I said today, and I'm not sure if they will regularly be on Mondays, but we'll try to give you a week's notice when we're going to have them. And if you can't make them, like I said, we're going to record them so that you can catch up on it. And we're going to try to do them all by the beginning of March, I believe, because deadlines for applications are in March. Is that true? Or something?
So most of them are like in July.
Well, why didn't you say March?
I don't know.
All right. Well, like I said, today I'm going to focus on photography. So I don't think these pictures are for any of y'all, so I tried to choose some good and bad photos to show you examples of at first. So most of you that are in here have been through my class, are in it right now for Design 1, and we do a lot of stuff on 11 by 11, and then you're required at the end of the semester to photograph it in a digital portfolio. And that portfolio is usually going to, the way I suggest you do them is to put them in a PowerPoint presentation and then save that as a PDF, and then you can give it to people and they can't manipulate it. So this is one of the drawings that a student did. And there's good photos and bad photos. We're going to talk about how to photograph flat work, models, lighting setup, misalignment, and focus are typical photo problems. So, and we've never really taught you this, so I can't say that these people did it wrong. They just did what they thought they knew how to do. But it's very important when this is the only thing that the person is going to see that's going to judge you to get into school or a job, that it'd be perfect, right? So what is wrong with this picture? It's crooked.
It's not centered.
It's not centered. They should have probably cropped it at least and got rid of that black around the edges.
Or go the opposite way and really create a mat around it.
Yeah, one way or the other, that's true. Because right now it just looks like it's pretty. So I'll show you how to align something better. And one of the things that I can't feed into your little heads enough is you're going to have to do things, and you're going to have to look at it, and you're going to have to redo it, just like on your projects. You do something, and if something's wrong with it, for instance, I'm not sure good ones here, but the person went to the computer and looked at that picture and said, well, that's not perfect, so I need to go back and redo it. You need to be willing to do that to get the perfect outcome. I chose all good drawings. But if there's something wrong with your drawing, you spill coffee on it, you need to go home and redo it, or you need to redo it at school. Don't settle for, Miss, the cat ate my homework, and Miss, the cat walked on my drawing. Do it over and make it perfect. That's important, because this is your future, and you need to be willing to do that bit of sacrifice.
That kind of stuff would be a distraction.
Yes, exactly. No matter what it takes. So let me flip through this. So this is the glare's kind of bad. This is a final project from the first year. So what would be wrong with that drawing, with that picture? It's bent. You can tell it's tilted on the wall. There's glare. The lighting isn't right. Of course, we didn't have lights. We have some lights now. And this was probably the best that person knew how to do, so it's fine, but there are things that are wrong with it. There's probably too much border, or like Connie said, it should be even around there, and the lighting should be even. That one's hard to see, but that's a problem because it's hard to see, right? So even though, why don't we turn off one light at least and see if that makes it better. It's a little better, but it's still, it's kind of fuzzy, it's out of focus, it's not a sharp picture, right? So, yeah, well, the title's up here, that's probably what they did exactly. But it should be, you can tell that it's leaning and it's bending against the wall. It's not flat. And it should be clear and focused. And then that's another reason why I tell you people to draw dark, because you're going to photograph your stuff and you need to be able to see it, right? So that's, this one's better, although it's still not perfect. It's kind of got some grainy looking, the light's not right on it, but it's better because it's at least even. What's wrong with that one? Crooked. It's not square on. So the lines are good and dark, and you can see the lines, but it's not done like you would photograph a piece of artwork. That one's dark and fuzzy, not sharp. It's crooked. So I just grabbed these straight off the portfolios from the years past. And so this is what they handed in to me. This is whatever page that was on. I did not manipulate these to make them look better. I'm gonna. This is a professional thing. I got this from the internet. You should be in here watching this. This is professional sketches that were, except for, it's hard on this board, I guess. That's why you did it back there. But the light is even on these, even though the board makes it seem shiny. And there's an even border all the way around it. So that's somebody's, and you could do this, like if you do a really good sketch in your sketchbook and you want to photograph it, you may want to carefully cut that piece of paper out and make it straight. Don't just rip it out. Mount it up here like I'll show you and take a picture of it. Don't just take a picture of it open in your sketchbook. Okay. That is a very bad dark picture of, that's one of the charrette projects. But it was mounted on a wall and they thought, well, I need to show this in my portfolio, so while it's up here on display, I'll just take a picture of it. That's not really what you want to put in your portfolio, because you want to be able to understand what it is, and we can't really even see it. Here's a model. We'll talk about some 3D photographs. We had the black sheet, and they did, they put it on the black sheet, and you have the, I guess it's the forever background, but they don't have lights. And so now we do have lights, so your pictures should come out a whole lot better. But back then, that's the best that they could do. Here's another model. I thought was pretty good for what she did, but it's hard to see on this board, but you can see. I took that sheet home and washed it and ironed it this weekend for y'all. So those are the iron sheets. But before that, it was all wrinkly and there was crumbs all over it. And you see that in this picture if it was up close. But so this is how you're supposed to set up your lighting for taking pictures of a model and even for flat work, which we'll do in a second. So we have basically a table and we have a drop cloth, which it shows in the background. And if you bring it over the table and you make it curve just right, it'll look like it's infinity. Then you have your main light, which is this is the primary light on your object. And then you have a fill light, which fills in. It's more like, the main light is like the sun. And then a fill light is, just adds extra light, so it's not a dark picture. And then, so the minimum lights you need is 2 lights. You don't just want to have one because then it'll be lopsided looking. If we're professionals, you'd have an umbrella behind it and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, we're light years ahead of where we were 2 years ago. Literally. So if you go to places, like I remember at A&M way back in the last century, we had a studio, especially where we took our projects to photograph them. And they gave us big fancy lights and cameras, and they were on this big thing that would lower up and down and do flat work, but we don't have that here because we're Del Mar. But maybe someday when we get our new campus, we'll have a room just for that. But for now, we got to make do with what we have. So the basic things you need is the backdrop and the lights, and then you can probably get a pretty good job. If you have a good camera with a tripod, that'll help, but most of you are probably going to use your phones, so that's what I'm going to show you. You want your camera, you don't want it behind the lights. You want it at least, you know, even with the lights or in front of the lights. You don't want anything between the lights and the object though. So you got to make sure that that setup is correct. And then you want, when you're taking your pictures, which I'll show you in a little bit, you want, for your flat work, you want your camera to be even with your flat work. So you're going to put your flat work on the board, and then you're going to take your camera up to it, and you're going to back up, keeping it even, so that you have a square-on picture that's not tilted. So that's kind of the basic setup. I don't know if that's a slide. Oh, there's a professional model done, just so you can see. They've got the infinity background, and they've got lighting set up, so you can, the lighting, you want to show off what's important about your model or your drawing. And so they wanted to accentuate and be able to see all of this grid work that they've done, the detail, and they wanted to see inside of it. So you got to set the lights up so that the shadows and the lighting, you can see that. And it's definitely a 3D image, and it's nicely lit. So no question about it. This is an inside of a model. So, and I'll show you on this little model I have over here. This model is probably about the same size as that. But you get your camera in there, and you can do this good with small cameras. Get your lens right up in there, and it feels like you're in the space. So in this case, they wanted to show the inside of the space. They've got the lights coming in, and they've got their camera just right up in there, and they shot that picture. If you look close, I mean, it looks almost real, but you can tell that that's just a 1/4-inch piece of balsa wood. And, you know,
It's really good repair.
yeah. It's a very good picture. So you want to think about what it is about the design, what you work so hard, and accentuate that in your pictures, because that, again, is what the people that are judging you are going to see. And they want, you don't want to show them half-assed work, pardon my French. Here's another model. And this has to do, and I am not a professional. I did take photography in the last century at A&M, but I've forgotten most of it since then. Because back then, you actually had to manipulate those buttons on the camera and turn them and know what f-stops were and all this kind of stuff. And you can see the evidence of that because that's fuzzy back there and this is crystal clear. So they adjusted their apertures and their openings to give that effect. So they were focusing on this piece. And you can do that still with modern cameras, and sometimes, like I noticed on my camera phone, I can adjust a lot of different stuff. I mean, this is probably just as good as the 35mm I had 30 years ago. Just got to know how to use it. And there's all kinds of YouTube videos to watch if you're really interested in that, to make a better picture and understand how to control the focus and the lighting. And the other thing is, if you just have your camera on automatic, then it'll generally take a pretty good picture. So, I mean, I learned that when I was researching this. And if you go into, if you have a good quality camera and you can save your work in raw data or something like that, then you can really manipulate the lighting when you go into Photoshop and the other things. So you take a picture and then you can go manipulate it and make it better if you know how to do it. So. the more care you take at the beginning, the better project you'll have, the better result. So, all of this isn't gonna be in the picture, but if you find it where you can tack it, make it a nice tight sheet. Do the same thing on that side. This is for flat work. And be taller. So there's that. And then you got your table there. So the first thing I'm going to do is one of these. It's a sample. So before y'all took my expert class, you would just put them like that, right? And so that's why they turned out all floppy looking, right? So now we have this board behind here, so we can tack it up there. And it'll be taxable.
My brain had to remember all the things that I did.
So you put this up there as square as you can. And probably with this, make the tacks evenly spaced. Remember in my Design 1 class, I require everything to be precise. So you don't want to have different colored tacks. If you're going to use tacks, you want to use the same kind. And I'm not going through the board itself, I'm doing it right on the edge, so it's holding it up. Okay. I didn't do it too good. So there's that. Now, I've got my lights. So in this case, I'm going to use 2 of these lights. I'm going to use, now if I do that one, I've got light from the right side. And then, ow.
Yeah, and you have to make sure. Oh, see, we're stuck in it. Put it right here on the thing so it doesn't
So
fall.
they're even, okay.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
So now the light it's as well balanced as we can make it in this scenario. Is that right? Here. We could use 4, but that's probably not necessary for this one. Although, I don't know. I mean, you got to kind of play with it and see what looks balanced. We don't have light meters here. If you were at A&M or Texas, they would have all this stuff for you. But we're just trying to do the best we can do. So then you get your camera. This is my phone. And like on my phone, and I'm sure most of y'all are similar, you got settings, and you can turn on different stuff. They don't need the flash since I have the lights. Got mode. I want to be in automatic. You can do panoramic, which might be good for some things. So just play with your own camera. Now, the next thing you want to do is, now this is where if you had a tripod, it would be most perfect. Like if we had a camera, and maybe that'll be the next purchase we're going to do. You would have a tripod here, and you would take your camera up, and you would make sure the center of it was on this picture, and then you'd walk it back until you're behind or even with the lights, and it's on a tripod, and then you could take pictures. And you can also do the what's going on? Hold on.
You froze it.
I froze it. You can zoom in if you want, however your camera works to get closer to it. And you take a picture. And you're at the same level as that picture. And so that looks pretty flat. And then you can do, you can take it then into Photoshop and trim it up and get the excess. And the way I would do it is I would trim it all the way to the white. I would not have any black.
Not even the decks,
Hmm?
right? Not even the
Probably, if you could get the tacks out of there, that'd be great. But you want, I mean, it's better to have those tacks on there than have it leaning sideways, you know. So let's just,
So basically, when you go to trim it, the Adobe Photoshop, you're basically going to trim
yeah,
evenly around.
that's called cropping, right?
Yeah.
So,
So you don't have your tacks in there.
You could also do it on your phone.
yeah, you can do it on your phone. How does this find it?
It allows it.
So if I just had one light on, let's just see. It won't be as clear of a picture, I don't think.
I think you can do with your phone is just tap in the middle. It'll focus.
And see, that one's not as, I don't think that one's as bright. I mean, everybody's things are different. So there's the, I think that's the second one, that's the first one. I don't know, maybe that's the first one, that's it. But then you gotta look at them, and if it's not perfect, you need to be willing to go back and do it again. So that's what I'm saying, you need to be perfect. So if you have bigger drawings, you'd obviously need to back up a little bit. And if you had a camera on a tripod, you could, you know, what you don't want is anything between here, you don't want to be up here because then you're causing a shadow, right? You want to be even with your lights taking this picture. So, any questions on that? So you want to be straight, you want to have a nice smooth backdrop, and you want at least 2 lights. And we're going to avoid laying chipboard on this area from now on, okay? Because y'all need to be able to use it. So now I brought this model in to take pictures of for 3D. So here you can take some of these out if you want. Now you want to make sort of an even curvature in the back so that you don't, hopefully you don't see a lot of that stuff. And you put your model down. And then you're going to have, remember you have the main light, which is the sun, and you got a fill light. So I'm going to put this light back up on top now for the fill light. That's just going to provide overall light. And then this one's going to be my sun, which I'm going to make a little bit closer. And you can, just playing with the lights, you can see how it affects the shade, the shadow, and all that stuff. See, if I turn this light off, gives, you know, maybe you want that for a picture. You just kind of got to play with it and see what is showing what you want it to show. What's highlighting your model. So just, we have 4 lights here that Bob made for us that you can play with. So then, 2 of 1. Okay, so you want to be up close and personal with your model again. And you want to be, one thing, like if you do up here, what kind of view is that? Aerial or bird's eye? But is that really how we see buildings? No. We see them, I see them at about 5 feet. Some of you may see them a little bit higher. So you want to get down, if you can, and put your tripod down at that level, where it would be, where your lens is approximately at the eye level in scale with the model. So you want to come up, you know, and be at a human scale. You know, and hopefully you have a tripod and you're taking pictures. And what's good about like that inside model, now this isn't such a great inside model, but you can get right in there and take a picture of that stair. See, I mean, that's shaking a little bit. See, if that stair was a key feature, you probably want a little bit more light in there. But, you can get, let me try that again. So you gotta be willing to do, you know, practice, and redo it. You know, one thing with these kind of cameras, it may be harder to focus that close up. Here's that. That's a little bit better. But you want to get at the human scale. So, and then, you know, turn your model, get another view, however you want to do it, and take a bunch of pictures, and then crop them, make them show what you want to show. Let me see if I. Now, a lot of you are going to do these kind of models. In fact, in my class, y'all are going to do this relief model. So you could either put that up there, or in this case, you put it down here, and it's going to really show. I mean, you may want to take you may want to take a flat-on picture of this, and you know, one from the side at an angle, because it will show more dramatically the shifts in the level, right? Exactly. So, gosh. So, you know, I'm going to take a picture. It's not too focused. You can see that. And the black just kind of all fades away. You can, sorry. Haven't eaten lunch yet.
I see how that works.
And then, you know, I would probably take a flat on one too, so that you can see, you know, what it looks like. I mean, you can hold it up there and see how that would work, you know, for that type of model.
So
So,
when you'd have to thumbtack.
yeah, you'd have to, well, like on the other one, hopefully with thumbtacks.
Could you sleeve it down and then like maybe the stool and picture from above?
Well, that's what remember I was describing what they had at the schools. They have these apparatuses that have the camera straight on. We don't have one of those. But even if you're on a stool, I don't think that would work too good, because you pretty much have to be cantilevered over on your belly to make sure. I mean, you can, yeah, we can try it just holding it, but nothing's, you know, if you take it from the middle,
You can't see.
yeah, it's hard to see it. That worked okay, though. And you can crop it. So getting a photograph that enhances what it is you tried to show, or even hides what you screwed up on. Because if, you know, if you, you know, this person, I don't know if this is weird.
I'll use.
Okay. She didn't want to show something that, you know, all this glue she got all over the glass, so don't take a picture of that side of the model, for goodness sake. You know? So, and this is obviously a study model, it's not a finished model. Right?
The sectional model.
Okay. So let me see if I've covered everything. So to review, for 2D, 2 to 4 lights, smooth backdrop, set the camera at the same level as the lights in the drawing, so you know we were all about the same there. Put your work on the wall at the same level. Bring the camera right up to the work, center it, and come back. Watch out for your shadows. Don't get between the lights and the object. For 3D, you set up your background. You get a smooth black sheet, creates the infinity background. There's a curve and no crease, so you have an edge. You create the roll. Pin your fabric to make it smooth if you need to. Set up your lighting. In the 2-light system, you have the key light and the fill light. And for models, unlike 2D, you don't want your model to look flat, so you want to enhance the different levels and the ins and outs of your model. The key light is the sun, so it is at a higher angle than the fill light. No, it is at, key light is the sun, so it is high and at an angle of the sun. So if you wanted it to look like noon, your light would be up here, right? If you wanted it to be a dawn or a dusk shot, your light would be down here. And, you know, this is probably mid-morning right here, or mid-afternoon. So other, you know, more technical stuff is get the white balance set up on your camera. If you have a fancy camera, then you can do that. Otherwise, you can maybe do that in Photoshop. You can adjust the exposure of your picture once it gets into the computer. Always get the human, I mean, this is not a human-sized model, but like for this, you want to get the human view, not the bird's eye view, not the plane view. And you may do that if it's a large overall, but you also want to have a human scale view picture. So be careful if there's white, like this could be easily overexposed, so you may have to dial back on your exposure when you get it into Photoshop. You're trying to communicate and highlight the good points of your building or your piece of art. If you have a lens that, and these have telephoto on them too, so if you use more telephoto, then you feel more like, you feel more in this space. So let's try that. Put this one back on there. If I don't get so close but use telephoto, will it be a better picture when I want to be inside? So now I want to try to get that close-up shot again, but you can use books until we get our tripod, fancy camera. Sure, don't cover your lens with your thumb. So now I'm using my telephoto and not having to get so close in there.
Oh, okay.
That's the picture right now. So use the tools. All your phone cameras probably have telephoto or so I talked about cropping. If you have a fancy camera, or you can put it into your computer in the RAW format. I think iPhones have an app for that. Then you can manipulate it more in the computer. So that allows you to play with the exposures and the color and tones and stuff like that. So just experiment with different viewpoints, perspective, bird's eye, worm's eye, eye level, and pay attention to contrast, because in the models you want the contrast there so that you can see the different parts of the, it looks 3D, not 2D. Is there any questions? You know what you did wrong all these years? So in future ones, we'll talk about, I think Christina's going to give us lessons on Photoshop. She does that more than I do. And then we'll talk about wording and how to put information in your portfolios. And I'm not sure when the next one is, but it will be posted on Facebook and also announced in your classes.